With the Princeton University Woodrow Wilson Award for Distinguished Achievement in the Nation's Service, a Time magazine ranking among the world's most influential people, and a Fortune magazine's designation as one of the investment industry's 4 giants of the 20th century, Mr. Bogle has seemingly endless accolades. He graduated magna cum laude from Princeton University, has written 10 books, and founded Vanguard, the world's largest mutual fund company. And he won't tell you any of that. After hearing that list of accomplishments, it may come as no surprise that Mr. Bogle was voted most likely to succeed in the 1947 ACTA, his senior year at Blair. Since graduation from Blair, Mr. Bogle has served as chairman of the Board of Trustees from 1986 to 2001, received the Alumnus of the Year Award, and was the first ever recipient of Blair's highest honor, the Citation of Merit. He's a Blair boy, and one with a tremendous impact on the investment community, the world at large, and most personally, the students here at Blair. Both Bogle Hall and the building in which we are currently sitting were made possible, in large part, through his incredible support. Moreover, the Bogle Brothers Scholarship has given me and 150 others the opportunity to attend the school that he holds so dear. On behalf of the Bogle Scholars and Blair Academy, we'd like to thank you, Mr. Bogle, for your investment in Blair and in us. As I enter my last month here, I know I am eternally grateful for your generosity and the opportunities that you have provided me. To quote President Bill Clinton in his foreword for Mr. Bogle's book, Enough, John Bogle is a brilliant and good man, and every concerned citizen can learn and benefit from the important lessons he shares. So, let's listen. It's my honor to introduce the man himself, Mr. Jack Bogle.
What a nice greeting. Thank you, Grace, very much. I'm delighted to be here. Thank you, Dr. Fortunato, or Mr. Fortunato, for Chris and Aaron for being here, and members of the faculty, many of whom I know, old friends from a long time, Sam, Marty, Brian, and of course, most of all, you students of my beloved Blair Academy. Good morning to all of you. I have to start with a personal note. This hall was named for my grandparents, and I'm kind of reflecting on our life with them. We lived with them like a lot of kids did during the Depression, and I still remember F.E.L. Bertie Armstrong, known as Bird or Chick, and John Clifton Armstrong, my predecessor name, who was known as the Skipper. And I think of them and how proud they would be to be associated with this wonderful place and to have their name memorialized here. It's hard to believe for me that it was almost 68 years ago. Where does time go? 1947, that I graduated from Blair Academy. I loved my 2 years here on a small and aging campus that pales by comparison with what I see now when I drive up that lovely hill. Little did I imagine then, my involvement with our school would years later, after my family and career, become the highest priority of my life. It's a priority that I'm blessed by the great extracurricular activity that began when I entered Blair Academy with my late twin brother David, in the summer of 1945, and my older brother William had joined us, had graduated here in 1945. We graduated in 1947, and we were 16 years old. Hard to believe, isn't it? Just as many of you are probably that age right now. And at Blair, we found refuge from a financially troubled but loving family, dealing with the ups and downs of our lives. Those ups and downs certainly were true of my career at Blair Academy. We had no financial resources to speak of, and our mother, wonderful mother, talked us into this place, determined that these 3 boys, young boys, got the benefit of a good education. My career at Blair had its own ups and downs. Actually, downs followed by ups. My introduction was tough. Disciplined education was humbling. Exemplified my first algebra exam with Jessie Witherspoon Gage with a 40. Yes, that's 40 out of 100. It is not a good grade. I did sing him by getting 100 in the final exam. Never spoke to me. You know, he was very proud of me. He was a stern taskmaster, and a member of what we call the Fab Four. I don't think we did in those days. That's a more recent expression. All of whom came here in 1912. Sylvanus Arnold Zimmerman in chemistry, and Marvin Garfield Mason in English, and our then registrar, later assistant headmaster Harold Walker. Four marvelous people who shaped our lives. And our character, actually. And these were characters, as well as having character. And they were dedicated to teaching young men then, coeducation didn't return here until 1970, to study and to learn and to develop their own characters. They must have seen something in me worthwhile. They must have. For they and my other teachers demanded of me more than I thought I was ever capable of. But I tried to live up to their demands. They're tough taskmasters. And after that down beginning, my other grades were a little better, but not much. I went up and up. We scholarship students waited on table in those days, and Inslee Hall, the same Inslee Hall you dine in today, and I was promoted by upward start, was promoted to being captain of the waiters in my senior year, and everything else got better at the same time. I was in the Cum Laude Society, gradually improved, and graduating number 2 in my class. Devastated and angry that my final grade average, which I think was 95, fell a single percentage point short of becoming the valedictorian. My defeat was assuaged, I think, by my activities at Blair. I was editor of the ACTA and the Blair Breeze, and by being, as Grace said, most likely to succeed. Never thought about that until I read the yearbook. And by my admission to Princeton University, along with 6 other Blair graduates, Blair graduates of the class of 1947. It was easier then to get into Princeton or any of these other Ivy colleges. And well, I know how tough it is on you because I've got a bunch of grandchildren that are just getting through that process now. So I moved on to Princeton, which was really an extension of my life at Blair. Same pattern of down and up. At the beginning, with scholarship support, I worked my way through with summer jobs, vacation jobs, and campus jobs. A waiter all over again. I must have been good at it. But finally, a member of the Student Athletic Association ticket office. During those years of great football dominance by Princeton, Dick Kazmaier, Holly Donan, my Blair classmate, were both All-Americans. My studies were hard despite my success at Blair, and my first grade in economics, of course the subject I would major in, was so low, a D, that I almost lost my scholarship. And if I'd lost the scholarship, I would have been out of Princeton because no one else was standing in line to support me financially. So again, I resolved, you may be sensing a pattern here, worked upward, recovered, and finally graduated magna cum laude, and largely on the basis of my senior thesis. Finally published in 2001, and actually being republished again next month. Next month. If you wait 50 years, you can probably get anything published. That thesis was called The Economic Role of the Investment Company, focused on the tiny mutual fund industry. When this beginning, the stirrings of growth were just occurring, and the whole industry had $2.5 billion of assets, a fraction of the other financial institutions in the country. Today, that industry is $15 trillion. I sure made a good pick. And I I picked that subject when I read an article in December 1949 from Fortune magazine titled Big Money in Boston, and decided I would write my thesis on that subject because I was a contrarian and wanted to write something else that no one had ever written on before. And there I was. Business, ups and downs again. This case ups first. My thesis led to a job with Walter Morgan, fund pioneer and founder of the Wellington Fund. And I worked there from 1951 until 1974. And the arc of my career bent upward rapidly and steadily. 1965, when I was a relative kid, age 36, Mr. Morgan named me as the president of the company. And I was not only young, I looked much younger. I don't know what he was thinking. In retrospect, Mr. Morgan must have seen, again, something in me that I did not yet recognize, and I still don't really recognize it. Then the downs began. When Mr. Morgan turned the presidency of Wellington over to me, we were in a wildly speculative era for mutual funds, and Wellington Fund, our core preeminent fund, was a pillar of conservatism. It was out of step for a long time. I knew we had to respond, and I knew how risky it was. But I acted quickly and impulsively, did a merger with a small Boston manager with one of those very go-go funds of the era, and run by 4 young money managers who turned in a record of investment success, strong investment success. All went well for 6 more years, until the stock market collapsed. All the air went out of those stocks, and in 1973-74, the market dropped 50%, one of many 50% drops I've seen. From industry leaders to industry losers, that was Wellington, from first to worst, as they say, our business plummeted, and as a result, the managers who I hired, merged with, got more votes in the merger than I should have given them, and it was not me who fired them, but they who fired me, what I considered my company. That failure was the biggest downer of my entire life, and still is, and my career. Enter Vanguard, and the unique up that I developed, the ultimate up. I was too angry to be depressed, and determined to restore my career. And out of the ashes of that failure, the phoenix rose, literally. It was a new company to separate Wellington Fund on its own and its sister funds into a new form, totally mutual organization designed to serve investors and not to serve managers. So it was a whole new concept, never tried before, because Vanguard would be owned not by me, but by its fund shareholders, and not the way the industry was run by these publicly held management companies. That new firm, yes, Vanguard, was called Vanguard. I named it myself. That innovative mutual fund structure, never tried before, as I said, changed the rules of the game in this industry. The funds were there not to generate fees for the managers, but to generate returns for our client owners. Strategy follows structure. That was the structure, and our strategy would be to be the lowest cost provider of mutual fund services or any financial services in the world, and to start the world's first index mutual fund. Another great innovation. And it simply gives you the returns of the stock market without any cost, and therefore you beat everybody else who was operating at high cost. There's no way around it, although it took 20 years to prove it, from 1974 to 1994, roughly. So well it succeeded that it has reshaped, the index fund has reshaped the financial field. Everybody knows that. The innovation has given investors their fair share of market returns, whatever those market returns are, and they can be good, as I remind our shareholders, or they can be bad, but they will share in them and get their fair share. The proof of the pudding, if you will, today index funds constitute 1/3 of the assets of all equity funds, and Vanguard 3/4 of our assets under management. So we have used those two, that strategy and structure, to become the largest mutual fund company, as Grace said, in the world. $3 trillion. And I should quickly say, I don't brag about $3 trillion. I kind of don't like it. Everything gets too big. I'm a small company guy, and haven't run the company for quite a few years. but I wouldn't want to run it now. Too big for me. You got to know who you are and where you are. So get the picture. Despite all the ups and downs, my life has begun with kind of this maybe syllogism. No Blair, no Princeton. No Princeton, no thesis. No thesis, no Wellington. No Wellington, no Vanguard. So it all begins at Blair Academy. Right here on this campus, this beautiful campus that we have today. And so all those years ago, what do we figure, 65 years ago or some thousands of years ago? When you can't remember how many years that is, you're not doing arithmetic in your head, you're paying too much attention to what you're saying. Stop that. So in your own lives, you're prepared for those same kinds of ups and downs. That's life. That's what I've described here today. And you'll find that in your own lives and your own careers. And I'm sure many of you know all too well about ups and downs and what I'm talking about. Indeed, in my own life, I've already experienced the penultimate, next to last down, a heart attack at age 30, followed by 35 years of struggle with a bad heart to stay alive, and culminating in the ultimate up in 1996, a heart transplant, and soon looking forward to my 20th birthday, 10 months from now. It's sort of unbelievable. And I'm still at it. While I stepped down as head of Vanguard shortly before my transplant, I'm still active, the author of 10 remarkably successful books, and it's done no harm to have Warren Buffett's steady stream of recommendations about them. Doesn't hurt business at all, including his most recent annual report. Couldn't even believe the volume of an 8-year-old book. A frequent speaker, and above all, a strident voice for the reform of our casino-like financial system. Turning it away from short-term speculation to long-term investing, and focusing on creating a federal standard of fiduciary duty. It's just starting to develop right now. I've been working with the White House a little bit. So that the money managers who run other people's money, OPM as we say in the business, are serving the interest of clients, and that interest must come first. So all these things, if it happened to me, it can happen to you, believe me, and it all started right here. Now let me close with this message. More than any other student who has ever strode across this lovely classic campus and studied in these hallowed halls, I believe Blair Academy has given me more. More education, more opportunity, more intellectual discipline, more character, and yes, more joyous school days. So I'm hardly unmindful, how could I be, of St. Luke's entreaty in the King James Bible. For unto whomsoever much is given, of him shall much be required. And to whom men have committed much, of him they will ask the more. To state the obvious, even as Blair has given me so much, I've done my best to give Blair much in return. I joined the Blair's Board of Trustees in 1972, served as chairman from 86, I think Grace said, I had 85 written here, to 2001, and remained chairman emeritus. Thanks for correcting me, Grace. Chairman emeritus today, 43 years after I first joined the board. Having given much then, it's with great joy that I will honor the biblical injunction to give still more in any way that I possibly can. As I look at Blair today, of course I'm proud. I'm humbled. I'm delighted, as I am, to have our mission, as I've always looked at it, a mission to preserve, to do my best, to preserve, to protect, to defend this fountain of liberal education, which are just beginning, many of you. This community of teaching and learning. Here at Blair Academy, we still strive to give you students, some of the most promising young men and women in our land, the opportunity to learn more than you might otherwise have learned, to accomplish more than you might otherwise have accomplished, to develop your character and your values more than you might otherwise have developed. If these seem like unremarkable goals, they are anything but. You young citizens are the core of our civilization and our hope for years to come. You truly are. Let me close with a charge to all of you. Care about Blair. In one of my favorite quotations, Dr. Howard W. Johnson, former president of Mass Institute of Technology, speaks about the importance of caring. I'm quoting him here for a couple of sentences. In an increasingly impersonal world, you know that, I have come to believe that a deep sense of caring for the institution is requisite for its success. The institution must be subject to intense human care and cultivation, even when it errs and stumbles, as we all have. And as Blair has, it must be cared for, and the burden must be borne by all who work for it, all who own it, all who are served by it, that's you, and all who govern it, and that's what I've tried to help do. Caring, he continues, is an exacting and demanding business. It demands self-sacrifice, it demands wisdom and tough-mindedness, it demands discipline. All responsible persons must care, and care deeply, about the institutions that touch their lives. So care. Care for this institution. But while you're about it, just for the fun of it, care about the human beings, the other human beings who have touched your lives, and the exciting era that lies ahead for you. And care especially about those in our society who have not had the benefit of the kind of education that all of you are gaining here at Blair Academy. It's a tough life for an awful lot of people growing up in America today, and you have a good advantage by being here. Try to do your best to live your lives in a way that serves others, that cares about others, and build on the experience you've had here at Blair. Good luck to each of you, to all of you, in the exciting era that lies ahead of you. Thank you very much.